Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Strike, and I'm here with Alex Beddoes.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Alex. So how was your Christmas?
Dude, I've tried to do this so many times. This whole talking in hindsight. We're recording in mid December. I can't do it. I've tried in the past.
Fair enough. Well, it's gonna be a good Christmas.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We're recording this a little bit before Christmas. I guess like anybody. And we talked about it on the overview for the last episode, but it's going to be a different one this year. But for sure, it'll be good. And now it just seems like maybe 2021 Christmas is going to be even more amazing.
Yeah, it's actually quite good because we're coming out of all the lockdown and stuff at the moment in the UK, and it's like everyone's kind of really appreciating just. Kind of, it sounds like cheesy, but like what Christmas is like, we're just appreciating being close to our family, being able to see our friends. It's like all the materialism is kind of gone out the window this year just because of everything that's gone on, which is actually kind of I guess a positive spin on everything that's been going on recently.
Yep, that's right. Okay, so this episode, we had the pleasure to talk to Maureen Fan, CEO and co-founder of Baobab Studios. Had some really interesting chats, starting off talking about networking and what that is and what that isn't.
Yeah, it's something I'm quite passionate about because it's interesting. A lot of young students, I think they get fed a lot of misinformation or they misinterpret what networking is. They think it's going on LinkedIn and collecting people like Pokemon cards and just spamming connect on all these different people. And what it really is building relationships. And it's really cool to hear Maureen's take on it because she shares a lot of the same philosophies with myself, and I know you. And I think it's with anyone who's kind of been around for a while who has had to do this as a career. They kind of understand that, okay, I need to build genuine relationships with people. So hearing her take on that and her really dive into it was really, really useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also talking about, which was neat, was being an artist, but also a business person and wearing those two hats. Remember that?
Yeah. It's, again, I think it's one of these things. The two kind of get sort of opposed. It's easy to think of it like as two separate parts of the brain that like you can't be both. And like really they're very similar in terms of like way you have to think. You have to be creative to be a business person. You have to come up with clever new ideas and you have to be able to work with people and manage people. Working as an artist is pretty much the exact same. You have to come up with new ideas and new takes on things. You have to interact with people. You have to work well as a team. Like these things are quite close. It's just we draw a weird separation between them. And Maureen being like so heavily into both sides of it. Again, it's not very often you get to speak to people like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. This episode actually was packed with information because after we talked about that, being that Baobab focuses on VR experiences, we dove into that, talking about those different experiences that they've created and why they're interesting. Also, diversity in media and entertainment. So the kind of projects that she's been working on. Diversity there, diversity in the storytelling, also in the cast. So that was really great too, and some of the other initiatives that her and her team are involved in. So yeah, great conversation. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, Maureen. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So you must be missing attending conferences and being out on the road these days. I know you really enjoy that.
Actually, I'm an introvert. So to be honest, this is a good excuse to not have to travel and be out there. But yeah, it's nice to see people interact with our content. And I do miss that part.
Yeah. I miss as well. Me too. I'm an introvert and I don't mind the having to stay at home, but I do like the freedom and I do like going out and talking to people and being out there. And especially this month has been difficult. We're recording this when THU would have happened a few weeks ago. And that's a special conference for me. And I missed that one.
Yeah. I think you might have been the first person that I met at THU. So it was really good memories.
Yeah.
I think it might have gone virtual this year, but we'll see. Hopefully they're open next year.
Yeah. Good. All right. So you have really impressive credentials as a business person, having studied at such institutions like Stanford and Harvard Business School. You're also an artist. So do you classify yourself as a suit or as an animator? Like how do you?
That's the eternal question. One of the things I often advise young people getting into the industry is not to let people bucket you into suit or creative. I think there is definitely a desire to do that. So even when I was at Stanford, I wasn't cool with just staying in the lane that, you know, our normal major. So I designed my own major is computer science, art, and psychology because it was perfect for animation. So just not letting people put you into these little buckets. And then at eBay, I was a UI designer, and that is again merging right brain and left brain. You know, you have to fulfill the business needs of the UI, but also make sure you design the information in a way that's understandable by people. And then even when I was doing the business role at eBay, I was taking art classes on the side because I really want to figure out a way to bring the two together. And it was funny when I was at Pixar, they wanted me originally because I was at business school during this time and it was an internship between the 2 years. They really wanted me to go in and be in the accounting finance team, to be a suit, but I would not be good at that. They're like, please give me minimum wage so I can work as a production assistant, get people coffee instead. But even there, you know, at a place like Pixar, there's still this, which one are you? And it was funny because when you were talking to some of the finance people, they're saying how they were a little uncomfortable about, you know, creating films that were like a half silent film about robots that's almost black and white in the beginning, which is Wall-E, or about rats wanting to cook. Because normally business people would be like, that's not really franchisable. But, you know, it turned out great. And then on the artist side, like these suits, they don't understand us. But both sides totally need each other. So I think if you're able to do both, then you are able to be the bridge in between two. And I find a lot of producers have that skill set of bridging the gap between the two. But I found that this was especially helpful in starting Baobob, my animation studio, because the more things that I've done on both the right side and left side of the brains allows me to empathize with people of that discipline. So I can empathize with both artists as well as business people. Therefore, not one dominates the other, right? Because you have understanding and you can talk to them on the wavelength. So I think of it as a strength. But like I said, you just create your own path and refuse to be bucketed. Because even at Pixar, I was so lucky. My manager, Tashana Landre, she designed an internship for me at Pixar and allowed me to go to each of the departments. She let me go to the art department editorial sets, and I was also with the business people. But if I hadn't asked for that, I wouldn't have been given the opportunity, because normally when you're an intern at Pixar, you go with one team for that entire time. So my advice would be to always ask for what you want. It's my motto is always be asking, because if you don't ask, people aren't going to give it to you. And I will say, as a lady, sometimes if you ask a lot, it can seem as though you're high maintenance, but you know that all the men are doing it. So if you don't, you're disadvantaged. So you might as well do it anyway. That's what I.
Isn't it odd that like we kind of draw this line? I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Like I guess I'm an artist at heart. Like I've been spent my whole career being an artist. But as I've been in the past involved in more the business side of things, and I've speak to more of the, like I said, they're more business type people. They're kind of, I find it funny that we draw this distinction just because they're basically the same creature. And an example I came up with was, you take Bob Ross and Gary Vee. Like, you'd say they're not the same person, they're completely different. But to be a business person, you need a lot of creativity. You can't just repeat what's already been done. You have to come up with new ideas. And an artist is just like, they're creative too. So it's like, these two people are the same thing. They're just, their art craft is different. So I always find it funny we draw these distinctions, because they're basically the same. Like, you need high levels of creativity to be successful at either.
I totally agree. And especially, I think, as an entrepreneur, if you're trying to do something new and innovative, you have to have the courage to dream in a really big way and be super creative. Because if you do things like everybody else, you're not going to have an advantage. You're just going to be like everybody else. So to create anything unique and special, you absolutely have to be creative. And in fact, I found while I was at eBay, I was getting a little sad at one point because I wasn't doing as much of the creative stuff. And so when I started taking the art classes on the side and drawing every day and forcing myself to draw every day, I found that I got a lot better at business at that point, because it was just making me think in these different ways, and it helps you make these connections that you wouldn't normally. So I think they're absolutely connected to each other.
And not to get into like, I don't want to get into heavy Jungian psychology or anything like that, but you have different kind of personas depending on who you're talking to. You speak to business people, you put your persona of I'm a business person on. You speak to the artist, you're all like touchy feely and like expressive. How did you get to the point of kind of, and like I said, I'm not going to get heavy into Jungian psychology, but like incorporating the shadow, these elements from each side to make you a more rounded person. Like there's elements of an artist you bring into your business side. There's elements of the business side you bring into being an artist, which is quite a difficult thing to do.
It's very difficult. And in fact, I wouldn't say I have it done perfectly or figured out. In fact, there was one point in my career where I got this feedback that people didn't understand who I was, because it seemed like I could change so quickly. They're saying, on the one hand, you're this Harvard Business School, like hard-nosed, numbers-focused, metrics person who's like hard-charging, ambitious. And then sometimes when we see you with your team, you're this happy-go-lucky, super creative, fun-loving dreamer. And they're like, because we can't put you in a bucket, it makes people uncomfortable because they want to know who you are. And I ended up rejecting that. And I said to this person, I said, some people may find me contradictory, but I actually find this to be a strength, that I am both and can be both. And they are both me. They're just different sides to me. And the fact that I can bridge between the two is an asset. So you shouldn't use it as a criticism of me. And you just have to like learn to love that and embrace it. So I reject it. They didn't like it. But yes, it makes people uncomfortable when they can't put you in a bucket. Absolutely. But it's funny. Tim Letourneau, who's one of my mentors, he's an advisor right now. He was a GM, executive producer at Electronic Arts on The Sims. And he was chief creative officer actually at Zynga. And he taught me a lot about managing different styles. He said, engineers, product managers, business people, if you created a graph, they might always work at like 100% or 150%, the really good ones, because you can keep them at that level. They're very logical. And he says many times artists are like plus 200%, minus 200% plus. And he's like, the way you manage the creatives is more emotional management versus on the business side, it's much more like you present these facts. And so he says you need to ultimately, and even if it means on the emotional front is talking about their life at home, what's driving their emotions, you have to be able to do that. And that really changed my perspective on how to manage. But it, like, even now when I have one-on-ones with my team, I make sure I schedule 1 hour sessions with my artists versus like 15 minutes to my business people and engineers because of the different personalities. But again, what I just said is also bucketing people. So I think it's really based off of the individual. And I think I absolutely have both. One thing that is difficult though is, for example, at my studio, because there are fewer business people, I have to represent that function. And that's sometimes soul sucking, to be honest, because sometimes the only reason I started this studio is because I'm a fangirl of the artist and I want to be them, but I don't think I'm good enough. So this is what I can do to be around them. So my whole reason for doing this is to be around them. Yet sometimes I have to be the one that says, faster, cheaper, which I just absolutely hate. So then you feel like you're the man and you're the evil person. And that hurts my soul because all I want is to let my artists have all the time and all the money as they want. But sometimes you do have to go all the way to the other side to balance on the other side. So it is constantly a war, honestly, inside my head.
I'd imagine, though, that based on the kind of person that you are and as you describe the business side and the artistic side, that you would be the best person to communicate that to artists, because you're almost like you understand where they're coming from. And although you're trying to make the business decision for what's right, the way that you communicate that to your staff is going to come across better because of who you are.
I try and I hope so, but we can always improve. But I hope my staff would say that. But, yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit about, or hear more from you about your experience with networking, because in all the talks I've heard from you, it's been an important part of your life and your career. But the term networking is sometimes misused, and sometimes people use it in a flippant way as if it's just going to a party or so on. But for you, what is like good networking, and how do you do it?
Yeah, I hate the term networking, and I don't like networking because I'm an introvert. I'm the person at a party who's really nervous and standing at that side. And then I have to build up the courage. I'm like, all right, go talk to that person. So I find it best when it's people that you genuinely like. So I didn't set out to do this on purpose. It was when I was at eBay, I got this impression from corporate world at times that the way to get ahead, a lot of people got ahead were evil and political. And I thought, I don't want to be like that. And I found this person, her name was Anne Raimondi, who was not only amazing and badass at her job, but she was also so ethical and so wonderful to people. So I asked her, not knowing what the word really meant, I said, will you mentor me? And she said yes. And she ended up being the best person ever to mentor, because she like helped me with so many decisions, but she also helped me with my personal life as well as my work life. And I don't really believe completely in separating the two, because if you love your work, it's going to bleed into your family. So she was someone I felt completely trusting of. But she ended up, because she was so wonderful, everybody liked her. So she mentored a bajillion people. And that meant that when I graduated from business school and I was looking for a job, all I had to tell her is, hey, and here are my priorities. I want to be in a small company. I want to be a startup. It has to be creative, blah, blah, blah. She went out to her network, found the companies that she felt would be a good match for me based off of my priorities, and set up informational interviews for me for all those companies. So by the time I went in and interviewed with them, I already had a leg up because I was introduced by this person that they deeply respected. And that was an example of how having a mentor really helps. And then I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then she also introduced me to Michael Deering, who's a very famous now angel investor. But at this time, he was a general manager at eBay. He gave me lots of advice about fundraising and my pitch deck, because as an angel investor VC, he knows how to do that. The best advice I ever received when I was in college was from Lori Loeb. She is a professor of animation at Dartmouth right now, but she was visiting at Stanford. She said, Maureen, I was really stressed out because I was like this right brain, left brain thing. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. She said, it doesn't matter what you do. At one point, she was homeless. At one point, she was part of the circus. Another point, she was drawing for The Simpsons. And she said, whatever you do, just do it really well. It doesn't matter what you do, because at some point, those people who saw you work really hard will admire your work ethic. And somehow later on, they will come out and help you because they like you and think that you work really hard. They want to help you achieve your dreams. And you will learn something from that experience that will help you later on that you didn't realize. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely true of starting Baobob. So when I started Baobob, I talked to Glenn Entis, who's the co-founder of PDI, DreamWorks Animation. He was also the CEO of DreamWorks Interactive, which Electronic Arts purchased to become EALA. So he's games and film. He was consulting. He's retired. He's consulting at Zynga. When I found out who he was, I'm like, you'll be my mentor. And he's like, absolutely not. I don't know if I have enough time. I'm retired. He's like, I have to ask my wife. And I said, you know what? Your wife and I are going to become best friends. Yeah. So he ultimately, I think his wife said, yeah, go ahead, be your mentor. So he became my mentor. He was the one who introduced me when I decided I want to start this company to Eric Darnell. There was a closing of PDI event at some happy hour at Zynga. He introduced me to Eric. I remembered that. Later on, I asked Glenn, can you reintroduce me to Eric? He introduced me to Eric. I somehow convinced Eric to join me. I met Larry actually when I was trying to decide whether to go to business school or art school, or whether or not to take the business school offer. And I emailed everyone in the Stanford alumni database to get advice. And Larry was one of the people I emailed. And Larry ended up telling me not to go. I didn't listen to him, but I kept in touch with him. So when I ran into him in San Francisco and told him I was starting a company, he's like, oh, maybe I should join you. But it was all because of that connection we formed a long time ago where he was giving me all this advice. Even Vicki Beck at Lucasfilm, ILM, she was one of the people I emailed for advice, and she responded. And ever since then, she has been an integral part of my career and the advice. And then the first venture capitalist who funded Baobob was Gavin Teo, who was part of Comcast Ventures because he was on Farmville. And so he knew me and he was like, yeah, this girl's crazy and she'll make us some money. So you should say yes. And then my UI designer friends from eBay, when I was a UI designer, helped me create my pitch deck and make it gorgeous when I was going out to fundraise for Baobob. And then Glenn Entis introduced me to Alvy Ray Smith, co-founder of Pixar. Alvy then introduced me to Glenn Keane, who became my advisor. It just kept on going like that people from all aspects of my life, from all the different jobs that seemed totally not related to animation, came out to help me make this happen. And it wasn't something that I was like planning or plotting, like I'm going to become friends with this person, ask them to be my mentor so that one day I'm going to start a company. It just happened, right? Because I genuinely liked these people and admired them. So I would say, just go towards the people that you like. I would say don't ask people who are only useful to you, because I think if it's not genuine, I mean, a lot of people do that and it totally works. It just doesn't work for me. If I don't feel like I genuinely can connect with somebody, then I feel like it feels very transactional, and I don't like that.
Yeah, that's that. I was going to say, because that's where I think it comes from. Is that you're right? Because some people can do that, and I think it works sometimes. But I think building genuine relationships works all the time. Because like coming back to your very first story, you didn't get in touch with this person to get you interviews. You got in touch because you wanted someone to mentor you and to help you. Just so happens by you being a very good person and having a good rapport with this person, you're able to get a ton of interviews because you didn't go in like looking for a transactional relationship. You're like, well, it was, but it was to learn. It wasn't like, oh, if I'm friends with you, I could get this 2 years down the line. You were thinking like that. And I think a lot of people do this. I mean, this happens in art as well, not just business. I mean, a lot of the time, artists spend their time networking. And a lot of it is, I'll add a bunch of artists on LinkedIn and I'll ask them to review my portfolio and I've done my job. I've networked. And I'm kind of like, I always pitch, make friends, not networks. All the people who have helped me through my career have been good friends. And they're people who I haven't met in person sometimes, but have been genuine friends, want the best for you, which is really important in all this. Mm. And it's not transactional. And I think that's the biggest, that's the key word to all this, is don't make it a transactional relationship, because then it works the other way against you as well. As soon as you're not useful anymore, that person gets rid of you because it's just a transactional thing.
Yeah. And you can feel it, right? When someone's just using you. Also, because if you genuinely like somebody, you're keep in touch with them because you actually care, versus because everyone gets really busy. And if it's someone who you're just using, then you probably won't reach out to them except when you need them. And they'll sense that, right? Because if you don't have that much time, you're not going to spend your time talking to people you don't genuinely really like. So I think it definitely comes through.
I like what you were saying too about the hard work and working within teams, building relationship wherever you are, making friends, and then later on, you never know how you'll be able to reconnect and work together again, or just get introductions, and it's a lot more genuine.
It felt wonderful though when it happened, because it all happened in the span of 2 months, right? And starting a company of fundraising is awful. I hate it. Yeah. The process so much. But then when all these people were helping me in so many different, in every way, like listening to me practice my pitch, giving me feedback, it really made me feel supported and not lonely doing it. And I think that's one of the hard things about being an entrepreneur. You feel really lonely, and I didn't, because of all these supportive people. And a lot of people said, you've been talking about wanting to do animation since you were a little baby when you first graduated from college, and that I can be part of making this happen for you makes me feel really good. And that just felt really good to me, right? But that's true. Oftentimes people want to help you, but you have to ask them because they don't necessarily know what you want. So again, always be asking.
I think it's also the honesty side of things as well. Like, obviously some things start out transactional in some way or another, but being honest of why you're speaking to that person, I think, is sometimes the best way to do it. Because, okay, let's take like a student asking for portfolio review. If they kind of message you and they start with like 20 minutes of small talk, and you're kind of like, okay, you're not messaging me out of the blue just to make friends on LinkedIn. You need something. Like, be honest with what you need so that I can help you. And by that process of me helping you and we develop a rapport, that's how you build a network, not, kind of I don't use the word schmoozing, but you know what I mean? Like, be honest of what you want. I need a mentor. Not sit there and make friends with a person, try to be friends with a person, then, hey, by the way, now we're friends. Do you maybe mentor me? It's more, hey, look, I need a mentor. Can you help me? Okay, yeah, sure. Right, now we develop our relationship. You don't develop the relationship, then ask a favor at the end of it. And that honesty, as I've always found, is a very character-defining element to a lot of people. You can judge a lot by a person, by how honest they can be with you up front. Because that's when they're going to be the most polite as well. When you first meet somebody, that's the most polite they'll ever be with you. And you can just get a lot out of that by like how that first interaction goes and what they need, what they want. Because like I say, always be asking. That's a really good bit of advice. It's also ask the right questions and do it in the right way. Because there is an etiquette to asking for help as well.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I totally agree with you. And I'm like you, and I like people like you. But there have been times where people have told me that I'm too direct. And they said that I need to, they're like, well, you need to do the little dance. It's like when you're dating, you can't just go straight for, I like you, let's date. You got to do the little dance. And to be honest, I don't like that because that's not who I am. But I guess I have decided that I'm not going to try to be someone I'm not. So I just keep on doing it anyway when I get negatively reinforced for it, because I appreciate it, because I don't, but I have been given the feedback, especially in Hollywood, to be totally honest, in Hollywood, because I live in Northern California in the Bay Area. And especially in Silicon Valley, people tend to be a bit more direct versus, I would say, in Hollywood, people are much more, they're very pleasant and very nice. And actually, I'm from New Jersey, the East Coast, where we're even more blunt. So people on the West Coast think I'm way too blunt. But I miss that. I miss the blunt. But in LA, everybody is very nice to everybody. So sometimes they feel that I'm too blunt. So I have had to keep that in mind talking to people in the industry at times. Yes.
Is that to do with, though, like, depending on who your audience is, like a first time interaction with somebody? Maybe, yeah, you be honest, but like, okay, I'm maintaining relationships, or I'm catching up with you. You don't need to dive straight into the thing. Like, it depends on how far along that relationship you are and who you're talking to, I guess.
I think my issue is even if I'm not far along in the relationship, I assume that the other person doesn't have a lot of time, and so wants me to be as efficient as possible. And I just come out and say like, hi, this is what I need and this is what I'm looking for. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So then they're like, oh, you have to start, small talk first and all that. And I hate small talk so much. But that's why I have a wonderful partner, Kane Lee, who is my head of content. And he is very good at that. So I usually have him do all the talking in Hollywood because he is naturally gifted at that versus I am not.
But with that though, how is it interacting with artists? Because I know, like, for example, me working with my peers, there's a lot of I'm very blunt myself, and when I give feedback, it tends to be very honest feedback because that's how I prefer to receive feedback. I'd rather someone tell me what's wrong than what's right. But that doesn't work for everybody because you talk to some artists, you're like, okay, that bit I hate, that bit is awful. You need to redo that. Like, that's not great. I'm not being rude or trying to be nasty. It's how I like it. How is that for you interacting with artists?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's partially based on seniority or maturity. As an artist, I find that when you first hire somebody right out of school, and I love them because they're so full of passion and energy. So and they do the work of like 10 people. I love hiring fresh grads, but at the same time, they're less used to the blunt, direct feedback. And I find that the more experienced somebody is, the more they're used to being in the environment where they're being given feedback and they don't take it personally at all. They're able to draw separation between the artwork. And it's really funny because when we started our studio, Eric Darnell, he directed all the Madagascar films and Ants. So he's been doing this for like decades. And so for him, at the stage that he's at, he's mostly interfacing when he was at DreamWorks with these like very high level leads and producers who have been in the industry for a long time. So he goes in a room, he's just like, this is what needs to get fixed, X, Y, Z. And at our studio, we had a lot of new talent, and they would get so upset and they would shrivel and be like, oh my gosh, he hates me. I'm like, no. And in a big studio, you often have the production people to help translate after you're traumatizing the director, meaning they take you aside and be like, well, he really liked this, but you might want to change this and try to make it happy. So it's been fascinating watching Eric because we don't have that staff and lots of people to do that. So I actually had to work on getting the artist to be stronger and not take it personally. But also Eric changed a lot, and he's like, make sure that gives the positive feedback first and then give the negative feedback. So it absolutely is an adjustment. But I totally agree with you. I love when people are direct about that, but it can be difficult, especially with art, because art is so personal, so I do think it takes a lot of experience to be able to separate yourself.
It's also getting past that first, I guess, like I said, you got a lot of young talent. I always find with young talent, anyone new to whatever industry they've gone into, they're very precious about their work because they treat it like their own portfolio piece. And there's that adjustment period of, this isn't your work, technically. Like, we look at this objective as like a business. It's like, if you're working for a studio, the art you're making is for this bigger thing. It's not your art, it's the team's art, it's the company's art. So when something's not right, it's not that you did it wrong, it's that it's not right for the bigger project. And I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of younger artists, is kind of disassociating themselves with their art a little bit and not treating it like it's their baby, which they can't, like, if it gets criticized, their whole identity is being criticized. It's like, no, this jigsaw piece doesn't quite fit. We need to shape it, make sure it fits. It's not, you're not right, it's the art. You know what I mean? Like, that's the separation, which I think that causes that.
I think that's a great insight. Yeah, I'm gonna have to use that one.
Can you
keep that?
I'm curious about the projects that you're working on right now, like from the artistic side, and how the interesting experiences that you've been able to work on so far at Baobab Studios. Like, maybe you can talk a little bit about those.
Sure. Well, our mission is to inspire the world to dream by bringing out your sense of wonder and make you matter. Now, we came up with that mission because I love animation. And the reason I love animation is because it brings me back to that 5-year-old sense of self where you thought anything was possible. So when I watch animation, I literally come out sometimes crying because I feel invincible. Like, I'm that 5-year-old sense of self. So that's a feeling I want to give everybody, bringing out your sense of wonder, because I feel sometimes when you get older, you lose some of your idealism. And I just want to bring everyone back to that child. But that last sentence of my mission, make you matter, is a thing that makes us different from a lot of animation studios, and the part that we really care about. We want to place you, the audience, into the story, where the choices that you make impact the story and help you bond and develop relationships with the other characters. So you care about those characters even more, and you want to know what happens, and you feel responsibility and consequences for your actions. And it's really fascinating because I come more from games. I was at Pixar. I worked on The Dam Keeper with Dice and Robert, but most of my career has been more in games, and doing the Farmville franchise. So it was fascinating when I came together with Eric and Larry come more from the film side, and trying to merge these two things together, because the two industries are so different culturally, but also in belief. And it's been really fascinating for me to see Eric's creative journey. He's our chief creative officer. In the very beginning, in the first piece we created, Invasion, at first he's like, we can't make you the main character. That's too much pressure. The most you could be is a sidekick. And we can't branch the story and give you lots of consequences, because it's really hard to even tell one story really well. It's really difficult to do many stories really well. And now fast forward to our last piece, Bonfire, now Baba Yaga. You are the main character now. He's like, no, you absolutely have to be the main character. And your choices absolutely have to matter. You can't just jip them. They can't have the same ending no matter what you do. Then why would do the interactivity at all? It's just like a gimmick. So it's just been fascinating seeing Eric spend the last 5 years from a traditional storytelling background to now becoming full-on interactive. And that's all from our first project to now, was experimenting with how do we put you as the audience into the piece. So the first piece, Invasion, was in VR, and we didn't have hand controllers, and all you could do is do eye contact and like have people follow you where you walk. And people thought that little bunny on the ice in our piece was real, and they try to pet her and talk to her. And that's when Eric realized that you can make people bond with characters if they interact with you, right? And break the fourth wall in a different way. And so when Asteroids came out, we started testing out new techniques from psychology, like mirroring. So, if you see a couple on a great date, you can see them start mirroring each other's actions. Like they lean forward, the other one leans forward. And this is something we do subconsciously when we like somebody and are connected with them. So what we started doing is making our characters actually mimic what you're doing and mirror your movements to get you to bond even more with that character. And that worked wonders. There's all this research that shows if you do mirroring, you're like, I can't remember, 30 or 40% more likely to like that person. And if it's a salesman, you're 30 or 40% more likely to purchase that item. They just mirror your movements. Right. It's crazy. And then the next piece that we did, Crow the Legend, was more about testing interactivity as a toy. So in Crow the Legend, we were testing out how do we insert you interactivity as though it's a toy. Like when you shake a snow globe, you know how delightful it is, or when you're popping bubble wrap, we just want to feel delightful instead of all the stress of like, if I don't make the right decision, is everyone going to die? So instead we made you the spirit of the season, where when you shake your hands, snow comes out. You make it spring, you make it snow. And we wanted it so that you don't have to press buttons and that you could interact naturally. But in this one, you're also an omnipotent force and have complete power. And we wanted to pose the question of, if you have complete power and you're omnipotent, what responsibility do you feel for these characters? And then Bonfire, which was starring Ali Wong, that was the piece where we integrated artificial intelligence in there, where we made this other character, Pork Bun. We call it Pork Bun because it looks like a pork bun. We built an AI system into him where he actually has needs, whether he trusts you or not, or hunger. And at any point you could interact. And this sounds normal to games, but for film people, it's very different, because oftentimes when you have people trying to insert interactivity, it's like, now is the time to watch. Now is the time to interact. Now's the time to watch, which is dumb because real life's not that way. So Bonfire was the first piece in which the entire time you could interact. You could throw flaming logs at all the characters if you wanted at any point, and they would actually react as though they would react in real life. They would stop and get pissed at you. And if you do it enough times, they start to ignore you, right? So we have to account for every single edge case, but we didn't want to lose the magic of that bonding with the character. So we put a lot of effort into the animation system to still bring out that personality more than I think a lot of games would. In games, it's just like, the gameplay is where you focus, but we really want you to bond with this character. And our latest project, Baba Yaga, I'm really proud of. It's using a theatrical art style, but in this one, you are a kid who goes into the forest, and in the forest there's this character, Baba Yaga, and some of you might know that character. She's a famous witch in Russian literature who eats little children and lives in a hut that walks on chicken legs. So for those of you who have watched Spirited Away, the main villainess, she's modeled after Baba Yaga. She floats on a mortar and pestle, but you're going to the forest to try to save your mother by finding the magical blue flower. But ultimately, you are making choices through this journey through the forest. And based on your choices, you determine whether or not humanity and nature can live in harmony or in balance, or if it's a zero-sum game. Because Baba Yaga, this evil witch, may not be as evil as you think, because she actually represents nature. And she's just mad because the humans are encroaching upon her environment, so she's just protecting it. But does it have to be so black and white? And that's totally up to you. And you get to choose based off of the many different choices you make about the outcome of humanity and nature. So we're really excited about that. And as you see, as I've just gone through each of the experiences, it's about each one was an experiment in how to make you matter. And we kept on taking what we learned from the previous experience and putting into the next one.
You must have seen unique experiences when you with the artists on your team that are creating these characters, and they are able to interact with those characters in VR environment. There must be some special moments that are happening, and fun stories with that.
Absolutely. With Invasion, it was wonderful seeing, especially kids. Oh my gosh, they take to new technology much better than adults. And sometimes I'm afraid if they're in a VR headset that you just run into a wall. But they, they just get it. But it's that belief. Like if you watch in a film, you see a character like Deadpool turn around and look at you, right? Break the fourth wall. You don't really believe that character is real and really talking to you because you're in a theater seat. But something about being in this virtual environment, you really believe that it's real. People start crouching on the ground and playing with a bunny on the ground as though they were a little bunny, because we made you a bunny. If you look down, you have a furry little bunny body. So people would get down on the ground and play with this bunny. And Chloe the bunny would start also getting on the ground and mimicking the movements. The truth is that was totally canned animation. But afterwards, people said she was copying me. But we didn't build that in, but they just projected. They felt that she was real. And then later on, she's hiding behind your back because these aliens are are in front of you and pointing their laser beams at you. People would say, "Oh my gosh, I have to protect her. I have to protect the bunny. Yeah. I'm the only thing between them." This like love of this character, desire to protect, was just something we didn't expect. And I think that's what really changed Eric's mind in terms of interactivity and letting really start helping out the characters and doing more stuff within the experiences to truly matter, because then you just bond with these characters in a way you wouldn't have. And there was this amazing experience for Crow the Legend where there was somebody who was paraplegic actually and couldn't walk, but she was in Crow and she could use her arms, right? And she was making it snow and making it the flowers grow, and she left crying. She's like, "Thank you, because in this environment, I felt that I was completely powerful and that I had magic and I could make these things happen, and it felt so real." And she just felt so powerful in a way that she hasn't otherwise. And that just, that was so wonderful to see. But even the 2D experience, so our experiences, some of them are in VR, but we also create 2D versions of our experiences. And I don't know if many people know, but we also just signed several book deals with Penguin, Random House, and also Macmillan to turn some of our IP into multi-book series. And some of our IP are also becoming feature films. But even the 2D version, people were saying that they want to reach out and touch the environment because it looked so felt like. We spent a lot of time. It was really difficult, honestly, creating this in a real-time game engine because we had to make it also work for VR. We want to create these fuzzy edges that make you want to touch out like it's fabric. And that took a lot of engineering know-how to do. But yeah, so we're really proud. And in fact, Eric won Best Director, the Best Directing Emmy for the 2D version of Crow the Legend, beating out all television shows and whatnot. So we were really proud of him that people are responding positively to our stories, no matter what medium it's in.
Mm-hmm. So back to the VR experiences, do you find people, if they've done it the first time, they're not happy with the result of the story, so they want to go back and do it again a different way and see what happens?
Yes, especially in Bonfire, because that's the first one that we made. Your choices actually give you different consequences. There's this endpoint spoiler that you're on an alien planet because humans have completely screwed up Earth, and you're part of Space Force, and you need to find a new planet for humans to go to, and you crash land on this planet, and you find Pork Bun, and over time you may or may not befriend Pork Bun based off of the actions. Like, are you going to throw flaming logs at it or marshmallows? And as you do this, let's say you decide to feed it marshmallows and lure it towards you. You get to play fetch with it if he likes you enough. But at the end, you find out that this place is hospitable for humans. And you have a choice to make. Are you going to let Earth know that this is a planet they could come to? But you know they're probably going to kill your friend and wipe out all civilization that you just befriended. And so you have to make a choice, or do you save your friend? Now, logically, you should probably save humanity rather than this one new friend that you made. But Eric wanted to achieve 50-50. He felt that he would have failed if everybody chose to save Pork Bun or everybody would choose to save humanity. He wants it to really be difficult for you to really think, because his idea is that storytelling is about putting characters under stress to reveal their true nature, right? You get so excited at the end when Han Solo comes back. You're like, oh, I knew he would come. That's who he really is when he's faced with pressure. And in Interactivity's case, Eric wants to put, in our Baobab pieces, wants to put you under pressure, make you make difficult choices and help you reveal who you are and what your true character is. So he expects it to be 50-50. So people would go back because they want to know, hey, if I chose to not tell Earthlings about this planet, then what happens to Earth, right? They want to find out. But it ended up that a lot more people chose to save Pork Bun, the illogical choice, because they just bonded with this character so much. And so Eric's like, maybe we should put in this part where your like kids come on the screen and like, Daddy, please, have you found a place to get more people to say? But yeah, we learned from that experience. So yeah, absolutely, people go back and replay because they want to know what happens.
It seems that there might be some psychological issues as well after playing a game. Sometimes a new level of nightmares, or or just maybe happiness. Like you gave some great examples of some people that might be experiencing things that they could never imagine to have experienced, and then they're just overwhelmed with joy afterwards.
Absolutely, because when you're in a film, I don't know if you dream about that film because you don't really think you're part of that film, but in our interactive experiences, people actually feel like they actually experienced it with their own like hands or mind. And so it's as though their body experienced that. So they do dream about having that experience.
You're working with some all-star Hollywood talent on these experiences as well, which is amazing. It must be a lot of fun. So you've been already talking before about your business hat, and then also talking to artists and working closely with artists. But then even interacting with Hollywood and the talent that's there brings another set of skills that you would need as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're super honored of working with all this talent because, to be honest, we're a startup. So for some reason, people think we're hundreds of people. We're 20 people. We've always we never expanded, but we don't have lots of money. So all this talent did this basically for free because they were really excited about the new medium, about they're passionate about testing out and creating new interactivity methods, but also they were really excited about the themes of what we were going for. And that's connecting with them on an artistic level. For example, Crow the Legend, it's not coincidental that it has the word legend in it. We did that because John Legend was both the lead voice. He also wrote a song for us, and he was executive producer. He really took to the themes of Crow the Legend about diversity. So if you look at our cast for Crow the Legend, it was John Legend, Oprah, Diego Luna, Constance Wu, Ty Sheridan, Liza Koshy. Is a complete diverse cast. And then we brought on 2 Native American advisors who also played voices. So Sarah Eagleheart, who was CEO of Native Americans in Philanthropy, and also Randy Edmonds, who's this famous Kiowa Caddo tribal elder who fled during the Oklahoma Relocation Acts, because Crow the Legend's based off of the indigenous story from Native American culture. But John was very passionate about specifically the diverse themes because it's about how until you accept your own flaws or things that your own differences, you can't accept others. So Skunk is very insecure about her smell, right? And Crow seems to have it all. He can sing. He has beautiful, colorful feathers, and he seems to have it all, but he's deeply insecure inside. And it's not until he makes the ultimate sacrifice to have his feathers burn black to bring warmth back to the earth that he realizes like who he truly is and comes to peace with who he is. Can he then be a good friend to all the other characters? So that's what John was really excited about. And same for this current one, Baba Yaga is starring Daisy Ridley, Glenn Close, Jennifer Hudson, and also Kate Winslet. And as you see, it's all female cast because a lot of the themes, 2 of the main themes in Baba Yaga are about female empowerment. And 2, it's about the environment. I was talking earlier about it's about humanity versus nature. And all these actresses are passionate either about the environment or about female empowerment. So it's also connecting with them on this other level that has helped. And so in that case, it was less of a business thing to work with them, but connecting that with them on a more creative level. But then of course, on the business side, it's been wonderful. Like John Legend was executive producer for us on Crow, and Jennifer Hudson is executive producer with us on Baba Yaga. And so for that, it's wonderful because they're also great business people. I don't know if you know, John Legend was a BCG consultant and graduated from University of Pennsylvania. So he's brilliant. So helps us actually come up with some marketing and
oh, wow.
That. Yeah.
Well, Boston Consulting Group for those who, yeah. Oh, that's incredible. And to work on also things that you're passionate about and are bringing about positive change. It just makes, like you say, that line between work and life is not really there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little bit. We're almost out of time, but there's a couple other things that you're involved in that are really cool as well. One is the Bay Area Animation Alliance, and the other one is the work that you're doing to support the Equal Justice Initiative. Maybe you can just speak briefly about those, what you're doing, why you started those, and
Absolutely. So, I like to say it's the
Bay Area Animation Alliance.
We have to do a new logo, and we're like maybe a sheep, but it's an alliance between 3 Bay Area animation and indie studios. So Tonko House, which is led by Dice and Robert, Kondo from 2 amazing art directors from Pixar, as well as Cuckoo Studios, who are friends also originally from Pixar, story artists. So Alex and Stanley, and then us, Baobob. So Alex, me, and Robert, we used to have monthly lunches at a pho place because we're so poor as entrepreneurs at a pho place in Berkeley every month to talk about how hard it is to be CEO. So we all would commiserate and provide with each other with moral support, but also just practical advice on things like, hey, here are the deal terms we got from so-and-so streamer. What did you get? And help each other negotiate and find resources. And also just advising, Alex and Robert had referred so many artists to us and given us feedback on our artwork. And Alex has helped us a lot with story, and we help with a lot of the business stuff as well as story from Eric's perspective. So we just help each other. And then we thought, hey, our studios could probably help each other with a lot of these issues as well. And for example, just being able to share how we do pitches differently. Each of us spend a lot of time on different aspects. So for example, Tonko, when they're doing a pitch for an IP, they spend a lot more time on artwork because that's their strength. We just have Eric write up a paragraph and just pitch because he's so amazing at pitching, right? And Cuckoo is on storyboard. So we actually said, hey, our studio should see how the other studios do things so that we can learn from each other. So that's how we ended up coming up with the alliance. But then we thought, hey, we should expand this even greater to the entire Bay Area community because this information could actually be helpful to a lot of artists out there in the Bay Area. And we were really inspired by some of the creatives back in the day, such as Coppola and Lucas. They all got together here in the Bay Area and formed a community of creatives. And from that came a lot of amazing like the golden age of cinema. We think a lot of the most amazing films, including Star Wars and Pixar, came out of ILM and Lucasfilm. So we're like, hey, can we replicate that for our modern time? Can the 3 of us create an alliance where we can foster a creative community? And so that's where it came about. To be honest, we weren't going to announce the alliance until much later. But when the George Floyd incident happened, we felt we really needed to do something, and we could do something stronger as an alliance than as each studio individually. Right. So we created an art auction for racial justice. And what we ended up doing is getting all the artists in our 3 studios to create artwork inspired by recent events and auction that off to get money to then donate to the Equal Justice Initiative. And we did a lot of research on which organization to send it to. And ultimately, we're really excited about that particular nonprofit. But then there was so much positivity that came from that. Like suddenly artists all over the Bay Area started saying, hey, can we participate? So we decided to hold a second auction to expand it, where we let just all over the Bay Area, just Bay Area artists in general, donate their artwork. So we had some amazing people like Pete Zone, director The Good Dinosaur. We had Angus. We had I can't remember. There's just so many amazing people who signed on to help us. And so we ended up raising over 25,000. I think it was more than that. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head right now, but over just 3 days, we raised enough money to give a hefty donation. And we're just really proud because as entrepreneurs and as artists, we're like, what is it that we can do except march in a protest? We can put something on social media, but that's kind of lame to me. I'm just that's me too. I also think it's bad, but that's not doing something about it. So we want to take action. And that's what we came up with. As artists, artists can do what they do best, right? Which is express themselves and create this artwork that can inspire other people. So that's what we did. I'm really proud of the entire Bay Area community.
Mm-hmm. So can people join the BAAA? Is it easy to How does that work?
I forgot to say what we're going to be doing. So we only had, because we announced way earlier than we expected, the whole entire purpose is to hold events. So the plan is to have quarterly events. We always have events within the 3 studios, but the expansion to the entire Bay Area, we're probably going to host them at schools, but with COVID, it's a little difficult. So we're right now in the process of creating a virtual Zoom one where we invite the entire Bay Area animation community to come join our Zoom call. And we're determining right now what the next topic is. Our first topic was Alvy Ray Smith, who's a co-founder of Pixar. He came and talked about the founding of Pixar and how it's about innovation and how about being creative and being brave. And that was great. And then we also had a very famous ergonomic person come and teach us about, because this is at the beginning of COVID, about how artists can have good ergonomics in their home office. So useful things like that. So we'll have another one hopefully in Q4 or Q1.
Okay, great. So then would be best then for people can follow her on Twitter or the website.
Social handles on all of our social media things. Or you could also go to our website, or you could just follow ArtStation, because we'll tell Kevin. You can let people know for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Follow ArtStation and just watch all our tweets. That'd be great source of info. Okay. So, for people who are interested in, and it sounds very fascinating to work as an artist at your studio, you have your website, baobabstudios.com. You guys are also on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Yes. and all of that. So people can keep an eye on that. Are you looking for talent right now? Are you desperate for?
Absolutely. We are constantly looking for talent because there's so much incoming right now. Again, like I said, I was very, very lucky that I convinced Eric to join us and co-found this company, because he has 2 words that Hollywood loves, which is franchise and track record. And so we have a ton of incoming because we're creating, besides all of our VR experiences, we're doing all the 2D shorts, but now we're also doing the feature films as well as television, as well as the books, as games, so we're looking for artists all the time. To help us, because Eric's vision is not to have a house style, which, to be honest, it would be much easier for me on the business side if we had a house style to form a singular brand. But that's not what Eric wants. And I'm here to support what the creatives want. And Eric wants to create a studio where people of completely different backgrounds, different visions come, and it's a place for people to be creative and get their vision created. So he wants people of different art styles to come. And so for each of our projects, we need different styles to help tell that story. So we're constantly looking for new people. So any artists who are interested, please let us know.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, it's been really a pleasure to talk to you, Maureen, and I've learned a lot through the discussion about networking and the importance of that, and how to do that properly, as well as just learning about some of the cool experiences that you're doing and what that can do to change the world. So that's really, really a lot of fun. Thanks so much for your time, and we hope to do this again sometime.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
See you on ArtStation.com, the global hub for creative professionals. You've been listening to the ArtStation podcast. Hit subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And please leave a rating and review for the podcast. We promise we'll read them all. See you next time.